I want to tell you something. It is very, very important that you listen and let me know in the comments if that's you, if that was you, or if that is becoming you. The Lonely Scarecrow eyeshadow palette from my ice cream box I'm going to use today. It's a gorgeous palette. I swatched two shimmer greens that are in there. One is darker and one is lighter. Lighter, darker. I have a big fluffy brush because I am going to start with the brown. It looks very pigmented and I'm going to put it in the crease. I might bring it up higher. I am not sure where I'm going with this. I just want to use the palette. But as I said in the beginning, I have something to say to you. I have something I want to tell you. When I was growing up, Sunday service was a thing. As a little kid, you had to go to church. Because you have to make first communion and you have to do confirmation. So going to church was a thing. You either go to the 6 o'clock service with your parents, and sometimes you go 6 o'clock service with your neighbors because they're going and your parents are not going. So you get up 4 o'clock, get yourself ready, have a little bit of hot tea to drink, put in your stomach, like the old folks used to say, warm up your stomach. Because I grew up in the 70s. I was born in the 60s. And you go to church. If you don't go to the 6 o'clock service, you'll find yourself at the 9 o'clock service. And I'm talking 6 a.m. or 9 a.m. When I left Dominica and moved to St. Thomas, there was a church called Moravian Church down in Contant. And I remember my dad saying, every Sunday morning, find yourself to church, my brother and I. No one stays in this house without going to church. So I went and I sat at the Moravian Church. I go inside, I sat, I sang, I took part. I didn't belong to church, but it was the closest one to the house. There is an orange in there. I'm going to take it and tap it up here. It's powdery, but I also took a lot. Or is it the fan blowing it away? I don't know. This one is powdery, yes. So I'm just going to put it above the brown as high as I can go and blend them together. But I went to church. Then I would go every Sunday. I would find a different church to go. I never went to the same church because I never felt like I belonged to any church, So I just went to different churches because my dad said no one stays home on the Sunday. So I just went. I went to Seventh-day Adventist. I went to Catholic church. There was another one, I forget the name. And I went to that too. Sometimes I went on a Saturday to church. Sometimes I went on a Sunday. Wherever the church was available, I went. But I came across a pattern a long time ago, and I never said anything. I just, kept going. When I moved to Florida, I became part of a church. I used to hear the preacher, the pastor on this Caribbean station, and his voice spoke to me one day. So I went looking for the church. I started going there. I was a member for a long time. I got baptized in there. But then I realized something is not right. They have a mauve in there. So I'm going into that. I'm going to go back in the crease with that mauve. I'm just sweeping it through. But I joined that church and I noticed things were wrong. I was in that church for a long time. And then I left years later. And then when I was in Miami, living in Miami for a short while, I joined this church that was right behind the house I was living. So I started going to that church. Again, Sunday cannot come in a Caribbean household back in the day where you don't go to church. So that little habit stuck with me even though I was on my own. And I used to go there, loved it, loved the pastor, how he preached his wife. And I baptized there also, became part of that church. And I went there until I left Miami. I maybe stayed there for a year, 2 years, and then I left. And then I stopped going to church. I would go visit church with other people, but I stopped going to church. I met many people. When I used to work this place, I used to go to church. There is a black in here, and I'm going into it. I want to put it right here. I'm still using the same big fluffy brush to fluff it around. I worked at the flea market and I met a lot of people, and one of the guys there, they used to go to this church that also my friend went to. So on Wednesdays, I used to go there we used to go there, all of us, him, my friend, and I. So we used to go church, hang out after church, talk, and stuff like that. And, as years go by, I realized every church you go to, they teach you to fear God. They tell you these stories, because they want you to be so afraid. It's like they instill fear in you. God is this, God is going to punish you, God is going to do this, God is going to do that. God will do this if you don't do your tithes. God will do that if you don't give to the worship fund. God will do this if you don't give to this. And I mean, when I go back as far as a child, it was mostly fear that was instilled in the service. They make you afraid of God. God will do this if you sin. What is sin? I mean, everybody have an issue. Every single one of us have an issue. But they instill so much fear in you that you are programmed. Whether you want to go to church or not, you wake up and go. If you're hurting, if you're sick, if you're on your deathbed, you think if you don't go to church, God is going to punish you. And I start realizing that the more I talk to people, the more I notice people are just afraid of God. The same good God they tell you when they feel like they need to tell you about how good God is, and they don't preach enough of that, is the same God that is going to destroy you and just make you disappear. And I stopped going to church. I was like, I should not be sitting there listening to that. Because the God I know from a child, walking with my friend who stayed by my house and played, and now we're walking in the dark all the way to her home, have to cross the river so she can get home safe. That God protected me on the way walking with her and on the way back home. And he protected me when I was old and homeless, gave me all these angels. Why am I sitting here listening to this? And it does not make sense. It does not sit well with me. It does make sense because I can see everybody's face in church so afraid, so petrified. You can see it on their face. And if you go to church today, Watch when the pastor, the preacher start talking about how God is going to do this to you and that to you. If you don't do this, this is what God gonna do. Watch everybody face. And if you have been not feeling well and not in a mood to go to church, see how fearful that made you think, because you think God was going to punish you. That's not the God that we serve. That is the fear that these people put in us. It is not God. It is human beings making other human beings afraid of God. Okay, now I'm going to use the darkest green. And I'm not going to put any glitter glue because I want to see how this works on its own. It's a new palette. I want to see how it works on its own. So this is, the shimmer is gorgeous. This is pretty and it's staying exactly where I put it. But my message to you is, do not be afraid of God. God is a good God. Enough churches are not preaching about all the things God has done for us, is doing for us, whether we can see it or not. God is not somebody to be afraid of. It's your core. It's your higher being. It's your center. Why would you be afraid of your center? Now I'm going into the lighter green. Oh my God, this is nice and soft. This is the lighter green right here. You see it? I mean, you might not be able to differentiate that much, but it is very pretty. I would think 90% of churches, I would even go as far as 95% of churches, they do not preach about how good God is often enough. They mostly instill fear in human beings so they can go and come to church, give their tithes. And sometimes people don't have the money. I have seen people credit their tithes because they're so afraid of what God is going to do to them because the pastor says so. There's a red shimmer in there. I'm going to try that. This is what it looks like. Ooh, this looks pretty. This looks gorgeous. So that is what I wanted to talk to you about. And I am asking you, please communicate with me in the comments, because I cannot be the only one who don't go to church for that reason. But don't get wrong. I pray. I pray all day long. Every time I can think of somebody or something, I will say a prayer. My prayers are not long because I just ask God to bless the person and give them exactly what his heart desires. It is not my job to say give them this, that. I don't know what their needs are, but I do ask God to help the person. But I do pray. I pray all the time, but I don't go to church. I think that's enough. There's enough terrible things, stress, all kind of stuff going on. And when I go to church, like they say to, pray, mingle, and talk about God, it is more frightening than anything. So for many, many years, I have stopped going to church for that one reason. Let me know if you can relate to that, because I believe God is awesome. He is there to protect us, help us, and when we go away from Him, He does not leave us. He's still there, but because we're so far away from Him, we don't hear Him. But He never leaves us. And we should love God because He loves us and not be fearful of Him. And when you start looking at God that way, I think you will pray and you will trust in Him. It's like, if somebody have a parent that they're afraid of, it's like you don't want to be around that person because you're so afraid. So why would they paint God that way and still expect you to love Him? It's how they paint Him. He's fearful. He's mean. He's evil. He's this. He's that. And then they tell you, you must love God. And then you're like, but I have friends who are mean and crazy and evil. Or somebody in your life that's like that. You try to stay as far away from them as possible. And then you go to church to get a little relief to know, you know what? I might be staying away from that person, but I can still get close to God. And then they paint the same picture. And you're like, you know what? I'll just stay away too. I don't go to church, but I pray. I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. And I believe in us human beings. So I don't need to go to a church to know that. Let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation in the comments, please. I tried the lip liner and the lipstick. The multi-chrome liner is underneath my waterline and on top, and I went over it with a black liner. And the Lonely Scarecrow palette. And all these things came from my ice cream box. This is the look I created today with that ice cream box palette. The shades are beautiful. The shimmers are gorgeous. Until I see you and you see me, please remember to never, ever, ever stop praying and always trust and listen to God. If you feel that you need to go to church, that is fine. If you think that you need to stay home, that is fine. It is your decision, whatever choice you make. My choice, I don't go to church, but I pray and I listen to God and I ask God for guidance and I try not to judge people because I am not walking in their shoe. And if I find myself judging people, I say a silent prayer. The choice is yours. God is not to be feared. God is not this big monster, crazy person. They make him or her, whichever one you call the higher power. God is of love. He's of guidance. He's of truth. Today's eye look. I will see you shortly. Bye.